Hello, my name's Tim Riggs. I'm the owner of a fifth wheel. This is an Evergreen Bayhill 340RK. And today I'm going to make some improvements to it. Obviously, when these units come, sometimes you have to just do things to improve them. We've owned it for about 7 years. One of the things we noticed is that the holding tank for the water, not the holding tank, but the fresh water tank that you fill, really they didn't do a very good job of putting reliable straps in to hold the tank in. We never go down the road with very much water in the tank, and even when you're stopped somewhere, if you fill the tank up so you have some reserve, it just about drags the ground. So I'm going to do some improvements today to fix that up just a little bit. Let me first of all say, as I'm getting started on this project, that I am not a technician, an RV technician. I'm not a mechanic. I'm just a guy that owns a fifth wheel that doesn't want to pay a lot of money to do the work. So most of the things I always do myself. And one of the first things we got to do is get to the water tank. It's back here in the back. I've kind of got it jacked up right now just a little bit so that you can kind of see, because I was trying to get all the water out of it, and the thing's just like a balloon. You'll see that in just a moment. What I got to do first, take the screws out over here on the side, these bolts out that are holding up the underbelly, and we'll get those out, and then we'll take another look at it. And over on this side, you'll have to work around the gas light pipe. Now there's the underbelly drop, and there's the tank. Now, friends, I'm no rocket scientist, but this is an 80-gallon tank. So you're talking upwards, if you fill it up, 600 gallons or something like that. But even worse than that, here's the problem. This thing blows up like a balloon. I filled it up one of my first times, expecting the overflow thing for the water to come out and say, well, it's full. All of a sudden I looked underneath. This thing was nearly dragging the ground, I'm telling you. So anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to put a floor in. We're going to put a floor in this RV that is sufficient to hold a tank of this caliber. These little bands, if you ever filled yours up and went down the highway, I guarantee you these two bands are not going to hold this tank in here. And so, and of course, obviously we never did fill it when we were going down the highway. So you Evergreen 340RK owners, this is what your tank looks like. Okay, so our next step in this project is to get the floor ready that we're going to put in there. And what we're using is a piece of plywood and a piece of flooring. And what I'm going to do is I'm measuring it to the size of the tank, just a little bit larger, than the tank. I want to get this done. You don't have to lift up. Okay, so what I did was I bought some aluminum channel rail, and so now what I'm going to do is attach that to the frame. I've got my floor up there. So basically what you're doing is doing floor joists, and this way there's not going to be any more sag, no chance of that thing rupturing out of there. So we'll get the drill on right now. Okay, what we have now, instead of a drooping water tank, is we have a nice floor with insulation. We put some insulation in between this and the tank, and we're also going to put insulation down here underneath. I'll show you that when we get finished. But you can see now, there's no way this thing's going to droop and sag like it was doing before. Again, at this end. Now this is the end, of course, that where the water goes into the pump, and you can see that now, where before this thing would droop down in the middle, and literally you couldn't even get the water here to the pump. I mean, it just wouldn't happen. Those are your sensors. Tells you how much water you got in your tank. And of course then there's some other thing. Now the good thing that I noticed they have here, which is good, is they've got the in the winter you can run the heater. As we insulate this, when we close it up, everything will be a whole lot more winterized than what it was whenever I bought the unit, and they advertise it as winterized. Now you will notice I put spacers in between right there. We had to do that because we put that insulation up in there. Okay, but anyway, and now I'm putting the insulation on the bottom. What I do here is I just use some spray adhesive and just spray the bottom on there. Oops. Spray that, and you just let that sit. Let that set a couple minutes, and then we'll push it up to the top. This is the back end of the 340RK, and done a lot of modifications, like camera on the back, goes to the vehicle. That's wired, that's not a wireless one, so it works great. But the 340RK is a great unit, except there were some design flaws in it when they built it, but especially this tank. But now we have the tank. We basically put a floor in underneath here, and now we've got, you can kind of see there, insulation on top, the plywood, and then of course insulation down here below. And then we'll bring back all of our underbelly and put it on, and this tank is nice and secure in here, so no worries about it dropping out on the road. Like I said, we never run full. I've been RVing for almost 40 years. We never run our tanks full going down the highway, but this one, even sitting still, if you got water in the tank, that tank looked like it was going to fall right out of there. So I'm glad to make some modifications here. Okay, and then the finished project, I should say. We got her all finished, button back up, everything secured, take back up. No more worries about the tank falling out. These 3 aluminum channels, almost like floor joists, are going to see to that. I'm happy. I'm a happy camper.